All right, welcome back to the Vegas Guys Locker Room, guys. It's February 16th, Thursday, recording. Had a big week. Of course, we had the Super Bowl. I know a lot of people had chimed in their thoughts and beliefs and everything going on with this one, but we're going to break it down, see what we think. We're also, of course, going to go back to our fatter fact, the top 5 fantasy quarterbacks on the year, and we're going to review the Big White Fish's picks as he made some prop bets, and we'll see how he did. First off, let's get into some news. Of course, everybody knows about all the coaching hirings, and we'll get into that more later on in the season, seeing how that's going to affect offenses, fantasy numbers, who's going to be directly affected, how's that going to change your draft of these players. But the big news is always going to be, where's Derek Carr going to go right now? Derek Carr, of course, was released by the Raiders to save cap room. I mean, it's a good move. I mean, that relationship deteriorated fast. So we'll see where he goes. I know a lot of people like the Jets. I personally like the Bucs. I think the Buccaneers go down there. It's either the Bucs or, I believe, the Saints. I think with the weapons that each of those teams have, I believe that's where he ends up. Only time will tell. We'll see. Long offseason ahead. Still got the Lamar Jackson story going on. Still looking for his contract. I don't see a spot where he doesn't end back in Baltimore. But listen, he's negotiating his own contract, and word is they're not very close on a contract. So, also, Calvin Ridley, Jaguars receiver, of course, traded to the Jaguars from Atlanta this past season, is now eligible to petition for reinstatement. Looks like he will go and do that and see if he can keep clean. No more betting on games and see if he can get himself out of that mess. But, of course, we'll get into the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl was, I thought, a great game. It was an entertainment game. It's just that call, and everybody knows the call. The holding call late in the fourth quarter, a little over a minute and a half left. I wasn't upset at the call. There was a hold on it, yes. Did you call that the entire game? No. So why call it there? Like, you would not call that all game long, and that was going on all game. Stuff like that is happening all game long. You wait until that to make that call. And the most disappointing part is not the call. It's the fact you took away from the Super Bowl. Because the only thing anybody's going to remember now is that holding call. It could have been an epic ending. They're going to kick the field goal there. It would have been 4th down. Give Jalen Hurts the ball with just about a minute and a half left and see if he can drive the field. That would have been an epic ending to a Super Bowl. Whether it be successful or not, who knows? We're never going to know now. But all you remember is that Super Bowl ended on a penalty, because essentially that's all it did. They were able to run the clock out. Philly tried to let them score. McKinnon was smart enough to go down to 1, and that's all she wrote. So that's kind of how the Super Bowl ended. It was kind of an undramatic ending, unfortunately. It was a great game, kind of back and forth. I thought the game plan from the Eagles was sound. Keep the ball out of Mahomes' hand in that first half. They had a 10-point lead. Should have been larger. Hurts made the one mistake of the game on the fumble, return for a touchdown, gave the Chiefs life. I think if you keep that ball, you matriculate down the field, and you score, man, that's a tougher Super Bowl than it came out to be. But it is in the books. The Kansas City Chiefs have won their second Super Bowl in the last 4 years. Went to the Super Bowl 3 out of the last 4. Are they the New England Patriots? Remember, the Patriots had that long run where every year the team to beat in the AFC was the Pats. Do the Chiefs become that? Mahomes is forming up that team, and you thought this year maybe it would hurt them losing Tyreek Hill. Really didn't have any. You didn't know who the number 1 receiver was going to be, but I think as long as Kelsey and Mahomes are together, I think they're going to have a fighting chance. Of course, Isaiah Pacheco, excuse me. He came out of nowhere, 7th round pick. Really, CH was non-factor. He didn't even dress for the Super Bowl. So sad ending to that. We'll see what happens there. My biggest thing is everybody realized that Melvin Gordon now gets a Super Bowl ring. The man was on the outs everywhere he went this year, and he's going to end up with a Super Bowl ring. So good for him. Hey, he found a winning team, signed with them. Congratulations to the Chiefs, all the Chiefs fans there. Hey, great season, guys. Great Super Bowl. Magic Mahomes came through for you. Listen, there's just no doubt that guy is awesome. Guy's an amazing QB. The one big thing I couldn't stand about the Super Bowl, though, was the field conditions. Everybody was slipping out there. I mean, it was crazy to watch how many people slipping on every play. It was insane. And this was brought up. There was a conversation brought up, I believe, before the game on was it the Colin Hurd show, where they talked about, because they keep that field outside, that when they brought it back in because it was cold, and then bring it inside to the warm weather, you're going to get a lot of moisture from the humidity. And it was going to be a slick field. And they thought, oh, the NFL will do a great job air drying that, making sure it's in great condition. Apparently not, because it was like a skating rink out there. Those guys were changing shoes. I mean, like crazy. That was insane. But people going to different cleats. Everybody was slipping and sliding everywhere. I think what the main thing that took away from each team was the defensive pass rush. That's why you didn't see a whole lot of sacks. It's hard to really get around a corner and build leverage when you're sliding all over the place. So, yeah, I thought that was something that hindered the Super Bowl. But hey, it was a great game. Terrible ending, but great game. So we will revisit the big white fish and his picks for this Super Bowl, which, listen, if you were paying attention to our Super Bowl special show, you'll know what he went with. First one was the coin toss. He went with tails. And tails it was. So, 1 for 1. Mahomes under 39.5 passing attempts. I believe he had 27. Check mark that box. Another hit, 2 for 2. Kelsey under 6.5 receptions. He had 6. He's 3 for 3, baby. I'm like, he's cooking right now. Isaiah Pacheco. Over 11.5 rushing attempts. I believe he had 15 in the game. It was 15 in the game. Check mark that. Whitefish is 4 for 4 here. But next, his last prop bet that he really liked. Pacheco over 49.5 rushing yards. Of course, listen, if he's going to get the ball more than 11.5, good chance he has 49.5. Yes, I believe he ended up with 70 plus yards. So big white fish goes 5 for 5 on the prop bets. Man, I hope you guys were listening. I hope you guys threw some money on there, because this is all you heard at the end of that game. He made you some money, boys. Made you some money. Unfortunately, me, I took some combo props. Neither one of those came through. I think that I liked the Isaiah Pacheco over 99.5. Like I said, I think he only had 79. It was 79. 70 and change, I believe, is what he had. But so he didn't get there. I got the Kelsey touchdown. Of course, the Chiefs win. But unfortunately, I don't get the rushing yards. So, yeah, no luck on this side. But the Whitefish did come through. Made you guys some money. Hopefully, you guys were paying attention. I hope you guys made some bets on that. Because I was astonished when I looked back at the Super Bowl, looked at the stats to see how he had finished, and he hit every prop bet that he had picked. So, nod off to you, buddy. Nice picking. Hopefully you got that money. Hopefully you got that money. All right, guys. Without further ado, we will get into our fact section of the show. And we're going to break down the top 5 QBs in fantasy last year. We'll start off with number 5. Previewed it last week. It is Geno Smith. If you guys have listened all year, I have been given a little bit of grief to Lee because he did pick him up on his personal fantasy league, and I just couldn't stand Geno Smith. I mean, come on. What is he, 32 years old now? He's not going to make anything happen. I think what he proved to us is that system in Seattle is QB friendly, very quarterback friendly. They hold a strong run game, opens up those passing lanes, and man, he looked good. I got to admit, he looked really, really good. Will he be back in Seattle? I believe he will. I think they re-sign him. I think his worst week he had of the season was he finished 29th. That was week 2. That was at San Francisco. That was his worst fantasy finish of the year. But he never finished worse than 19th after that. Last 5 weeks, he was pretty solid. QB 7, QB 15, QB 18, QB 11, QB 12. I mean, so he's finishing in the top or half of that of the QBs. So especially if you're in a 2 QB league and you've got him there as your second quarterback, I think you're pretty happy. That was his best finish since his rookie year. I mean, his rookie year he finished 20th in fantasy rankings, and this year he is 5th. Now, do you believe this is going to be a fact going forward? Do you believe that next year he will be in the top 10, in the top 5 nonetheless? I think it's a fad. I don't think this happens again. I think it's a fluke. I think people underestimated him, and I don't think anybody goes into next year underestimating Geno Smith. I think he has some rough goings. I still think he's definitely maybe a top 15 QB on the year, but wait to see. But I believe it is a fad. I don't think this is a fact. I think he drops out of the top 10. I think he's still solid if you're in a 2 QB league, or if you need somebody that's waiting on the bench in case you got somebody that's a running quarterback. Maybe you need somebody just in case somebody pulls a hammy, ends up missing a couple games. I mean, look at Jalen Hurts. Missed a couple games. It would have been good to have somebody like Geno Smith fill in off the bench. So, but I believe he's a top 15 quarterback, not a top 10. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, definitely a fad for me on Geno Smith. Number 4 on the year was, of course, Joe Burrow. Burrow came in this season. I mean, everybody was high on Joe Burrow, and rightfully so. I mean, he's got 2 of the best, actually 3 of the best weapons in the league at wide receiver. It was his best finish as a pro. Number 4. So he was a top 10 QB 10 of 17 weeks. He was top 5 6 weeks. He was QB 1 3 of those weeks. His worst finishing week was week 8. He finished 22nd. That was against Cleveland. Interesting there, but I believe because of Cleveland's rushing game and how they run the ball, they control the clock. I believe that kind of set him back. But there's some big questions entering this year. He's entering a contract where he can get a contract extension. Do you bring him back in? T. Higgins, his number 2 guy, is entering a contract year. Remember, T. Higgins was a second-round pick, so there will be no 5th-year option off of his rookie deal. And right now, I believe he's paid like you would pay a number, I think, 84 wide receiver. And he's, I believe, wide receiver 11 on the year. So kind of interesting. Heading into interesting times for Cincinnati. How do they move forward from here? Where do you go? How do you get these guys re-signed? How do you build this team? I know they revamped the O-line. It didn't look great in the beginning part of the year. The running game kind of really struggled. Joe Mixon, of course, had that 5 TD game, but after that, for the rest of the year, he only had 1 touchdown. So going to be interesting to see how they go from here. But yeah, I believe Joe Burrow is a fact. He is not a fad. I believe he may improve next year, especially with a lot of these guys entering contracts, him himself looking for the best deal possible. I think it's a fact. I think he ends up a top 5 QB again next year. It's just hard with those weapons. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. If they can get that running game going again, I think it's even better. Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine, good weapons out of the backfield. I think he has another big year. So we'll see how it goes forward. Number 3 on our list, Jalen Hurts. Amazing year. I mean, amazing. He's improved every year. I believe his rookie year, he was 35th in the league as far as fantasy QBs. He was 9th last year. Moves in the 3rd this year. Great year for him. I mean, he really came out there. His throwing had improved. Of course, they did pick up A.J. Brown, which is a great move by the Philadelphia Eagles. I think getting him a known and proven number 1 receiver really helped him out. Helped out Devontae Smith as well on the other end. I think last year you really had Devontae Smith and really not much else going on there in Philly. So good to see that come through. Listen, Jalen Hurts, I mean, I know I drafted him in my personal league. I think he was a great QB. His worst game of the year was the final week versus the Giants, where they were trying to seal off that home field advantage. And I think that's kind of where you were wondering how well is that shoulder? because it did look suspect at times, and especially in that final week. So, but he did lead the team to the Super Bowl. Got him close. Couldn't win the big game, but hey, I don't think this is the last you see of Jalen Hurts threatening for a Super Bowl victory. I mean, top 5 QB, 10 of 14 weeks that he played. Worst week before his injury was 15th versus Jacksonville. So, I mean, still top half. I mean, everything top half. His worst week is still top half. So, yeah, I think Jalen Hurts is going to be a solid quarterback going forward. His 5 weeks prior to the injury is how this went. He went QB6, QB2, QB1, QB2, QB1. So, I think you're getting top echelon if you draft Jalen Hurts next year. I think this is going to be kind of the fact going forward, especially the way this offense is constructed around him. I think bright days for Eagle fans, guys. He is entering the final contract year. Remember, he was a second-round pick, so there is no fifth-year option. So he's looking to get paid as well. It is a contract year. I think he comes out and proves that. But he's more of a man that I think he just goes out there and puts his play out there and he makes it your move. But I think he definitely gets paid. All right, we're going to move on. Number 2 on the list is Josh Allen. He was consecutive the last 2 years. He was the number 1 QB both years. You know, everybody was waiting for that fall off. It's really difficult. You don't see a whole lot of guys finish QB1 that many years this many years in a row. But getting up to QB2, hey, looks good. I mean, he had the elbow thing, but it looks like reports coming out that it does not need surgery, so he should be good to go for next season. He was a top 5 QB 11 of 15 weeks. His worst was a quarterback 18 finish against Cleveland. Cleveland, I just think with their clock control in the run game, I think that a lot of QBs got hurt in those kind of situational games. So turnovers, of course, still a concern. We thought he would lower that down. Didn't really get there this year. He's an aggressive player. When he throws the ball, he is not afraid to throw that ball into tight windows. I'll tell you that. It's feast or famine though with him. So, and of course his legs. He's a big guy. He loves to run the ball. He's a football player. Like he always says, he's a football player. I mean, final 5 weeks, minus the Cincinnati game, of course. He was QB 14, QB 9, QB 2, QB 4, QB 3. So, I mean, he's consistent. He's consistent top half, consistent top 5. Going forward, I think this is a fact. I think he still stays in the top echelon of fantasy QBs going forward. I don't think there's any worry there. I think that he'll be just fine. Listen, I think they just need another weapon there in Buffalo. Stephon Diggs he's an elite player. But I just don't think there's a number 2. You know, this offense just needs another guy out there that can, Gabe Davis, big game Gabe. He's either feast or famine with him. He's either lighting up the scoreboard or he's putting up duds. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts with him. There's no consistency with Davis. So hopefully they move on and pick somebody up, and hopefully that'll help out clear some space and get the double coverage off Diggs there. All right, next one we're looking at is Patrick Mahomes, who finished number 1. This is a first QB1 finish since 2018. He was a QB4 the last 2 years, so he's been a top 5 quarterback since he came in the league. I mean, Jesus, the kid's a stud. So yes, this is definitely a fact. No matter what I say here, he is still a fact. He was a top 5 QB 8 of 17 weeks. Played 88% of the snaps in Week 18 versus Las Vegas. Still finished strong. Didn't finish the top echelon, but didn't finish the game. So finished strong. Final 5 weeks, 6, 4, 7, 4, 13. So look, top echelon. I mean, top echelon QB. Highest TD passes since 2018 when he was had to 50, where he was the number 1 fantasy quarterback in the league. And like everybody thought, wide receiver was really never a concern as long as he's got Travis Kelce. Kelce, proving everybody wrong. I thought maybe Kelce would slip off. He still had a great year, very good year, and I was concerned with those receivers there. Juju Smith-Schuster really couldn't really find a home. Got one there. I mean, MVS. Everybody thought Sky Moore may have an impact. He really didn't do much through the season, but it was almost, Mahomes is throwing to insert name, and it was going to be fine. So, yeah, finishes the year with a QB1 rating. I think that's a fact. I think he finishes top 5 again. I just don't think there's any slowing down. As long as Andy Reid and that offense stays the same, I think he is still going to be a top echelon QB. Definitely have a chance to grab him. You need to snag him up as quick as possible. But yeah, I think that's definitely a fact. So just a review: Patrick Mahomes, number one, definitely a fact. Be back in the top 10 next year. Josh Allen, another fact to be back in the top 10 next year. Jalen Hurts, the same fact. Joe Burrow, of course, a fact. With those weapons, you just can't. The only one, I think, Geno Smith is a fad. I think he falls out. I think people underestimated him all year, and I think they underestimated the Seahawks in general. But I think next year's a new year, and I think everybody's going to be prepared for Geno Smith and that passing attack. And I think they knock him out. I still believe he's a top 15. I think he's a top half of the guy, top half QB, but I don't think it's a top 10 quarterback going forward. So that's just my picks. What do you guys think? Please let me know in the comments. Listen, it was a big week. Congratulations again to the Kansas City Chiefs. Another Super Bowl victory. Hopefully you guys listened to the Big White Fish Natan. He got you some money. Hopefully hopefully you didn't take my picks because, man, I did not come through for you this week. But next week, guys, we're going to get into our Fad and Fact situation with the running backs. We'll get into the number 6 through 10 running backs and see if they're a fact going forward or a fad. So hopefully join us next week. Always thank you guys for listening, paying attention. Please follow us on Twitter. We're at Vegas Guys LR. Follow that. We'll put some poll numbers up there. I'm trying to get more involved in the Twitter situations to promote the show a little bit. So give me a follow on Twitter if you got a Twitter account. Like, subscribe. Please get notified for all the new shows coming up. Sorry this one was a little late. Had some things go on this week, but hopefully we'll get the timing down a little bit better next week and going forward for you guys. All right, guys. So listen, pay attention next week. We got the court breaking down the running backs. We did break down the QBs. We'll break down the running backs, and we'll get into it again next week. All right, guys. Have a great day. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.